Welcome to Jazz in the Land, the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra podcast, featuring your host, Darrell Scott.
Welcome to Jazz in the Land, the official CJO podcast. I am Darrell Scott. My guest today is a young lady. She's younger than me. So any woman who's younger than me is a young lady. She's been singing around town for many a year. As I said, she's been singing at least a week. If you see this, the band, the CJO Orchestra, a lot of times you'll see her performing with them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Evelyn Wright. Evelyn, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful today, Darrell. How are you?
I'm doing the best I can, what little I got. Let's start this game off, this section off with, how did you and the CJO come together?
Wow. Well, years ago, I was working with a group called Jazz Alive, and that was compiled of Buddy Sullivan on tenor saxophone, Frank Daniels on piano. Let me see. Oh, gosh. The bass and drums escape me right now. But how we met, Buddy had to, I had to get a sub to play in his place, and I called Jack Shantz, and Jack Shantz was the artistic director of the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra. Mm-hmm. So we played together, and we got to know each other, and then eventually he asked me, "Would you like to sing with the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra?" Like they say, be careful what you pray for, because that was something I always wanted to do, was sing with a big band and sing jazz, because jazz is my love. Mm-hmm. Although my roots, I come from R&B too. I started with R&B, but my love has always been jazz. So that's how my tenure with CJO happened. So, and that was almost 20 years ago.
Wow. Oh, so 20 years ago. So you're 22 right now, correct?
That exactly. You got it. I love you, Darrell. I love you.
Thank you. So what is the dynamic, the difference between, let's say, singing solo, but then all of a sudden there's an orchestra behind you, and you all have to allow each other to work together, yet work individually?
Absolutely.
Can you describe that feeling?
Well, there is more freedom I believe in a quartet setting. But with a big band, there are arrangements. So they are written around what you sing. So you have to sort of adapt to that style of music, which I enjoy doing. So there are two different styles, though. Mm-hmm. But singing with a big band, it's a little bit more, involved. Yeah.
Because I'm the guy, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. I enjoy your music. I enjoy listening to you. But I'm also the guy that sits back in his chair and just kind of closes his eyes.
Wow.
And let your voice or the music take me wherever you all are going. That is why sometimes I get asked, "Are you sleeping?" No, I'm not sleeping. I'm really listening to what's going on. And I listen to the range and the runs that you go on, or the runs that they go on.
Yes.
And sometimes, here's the toughest thing, trying to figure out, when is Evelyn going to let them do that? When are they going to let Evelyn back in? How do you do that? So I try to be a student of what is going on in front of me.
Yes. Okay.
And sometimes trying to figure that out is more than a notion. So that's why I come to experts like you who can tell me, how long does it take for each individual, each group, to get comfortable with each other? So if you're singing, how do you know, is the same spot where they come in the same spot all the time, or are there differences?
Well, there are differences. But if you have, like CJO, they are very well seasoned musicians. So they already have an adapt way of listening and conversating with what you're doing. So I try to listen to them, they listen to me, and we can kind of almost have a chemistry of the music. If you know the tune, you have a way to just communicate that way. So I think seasoning helps a whole lot with that.
So how long have you been singing, and I don't want to say exclusively, but how long have you been, say, joined at the hip with the CJO?
Well, I would say I said almost 20 years. This was back around 2006. And the way I remember that, my mother had just had a very severe heart attack and stroke. And I remember one of the first meetings with them was after that happened. So that always stays in my mind. But it's been a wonderful journey. Like I say, Jack Shantz was the first artistic director, and then later on, Sean Jones became the director. And when he left, then we had Paul Ferguson. But he has written some beautiful arrangements for me over the years. So that's how all of that took place. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think it is about your style, that you're a vocalist, that makes you the go-to vocalist for the CJO?
Oh, well, that's nice. I'm humbled by that. Well, they've had some other singers too, but I've been there a while, and I think that I appreciate their style and the way they write for me. So I have a connection with the CJO. It's just my style. How can I say? I try to infuse jazz with other styles, other genres to kind of, circulate in there. So, you can be a little soulful there, and you can be a little, what's the word? Lilty, all those different styles, and like my voice teacher said, there's no two voices alike. So I can't say I'm trying to sing like Sarah, but I listen to Sarah. She's like a blueprint for me.
Right.
And Ella, of course, Nancy, all the greats, Nat King Cole. So I try to put those voices in my head, or what would they do at that moment, Yeah.
How often, even now, I don't know, you got 9,000 songs in your head, and you probably remember 8,994.
Yeah, about that. There's a few. I'm learning. There's so many songs. And the Great American Songbook, it's just a library of tons of tunes, but I know a lot of them. Yeah.
Do you continually rehearse? Because I imagine with your talents, you play a lot of different venues, you play with a lot of different bands.
Oh yeah.
And every band doesn't want you to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's right. So you're constantly learning tunes, or you have to adapt to what the situation is. Oh yeah, I'm constantly rehearsing and learning tunes. Actually, I work with, we have a performance coming up in January with the CJO, with the Music Theater Project under Bill Rudman, who writes a music documentary. And this one is going to be about Hoagy Carmichael, the composer. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do that. So I'm he gives me these songs, some I have never heard of before, and I have to learn them. So I'm constantly, learning tunes also, which is a joy, which I don't mind, because I just love it. Mm-hmm.
So when there's a song that you've never heard, do you rehearse it by yourself, or do we have to get everybody in the band together and you to go over the song?
Well, I'm going to rehearse it by myself first. I'm going to try to, get it synced into, my psyche. but then, yeah, of course I get with the band, and we have several rehearsals to get through it. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Has there ever been an occasion when you kind of have one idea how the song should go and they have another? Do you have to, I don't want to be a part of that argument, but I just wonder about meshing together, because this isn't just, and I'll use them as an example, this isn't Peaches and Herb where you just got to
it's not. It's totally different. Yeah, no.
But you got to worry about the trombone, the trumpet, the drums, the bass. The rhythm section is its own personality, the horn section, and then you have to fit in. What's the toughest thing about that when it's three parts?
Yeah.
And getting them together to be on the same page.
Exactly. And hopefully everybody's on the same page, or hopefully I'm there with them. But a lot of times I hear different things also that I know you should do it a certain way, but I kind of improvise, as they say, and kind of, do my own thing. But yeah, it's really a listening tool. When you have like, all the saxes doing parts and all the trombones and all the parts there. So it's very much a listening factor. Mm-hmm.
So how do you keep your voice in shape? I'm sure there are many people out there who are listening who want to do what you do. Sometimes, even in my case, and I think of somebody in my head, I can't tell you who.
Oh,
but
really?
you wonder how do you keep your tone, your rhythm, your style? Are you a hot tea and lemon drinker? Are you taking Vicks Vapor Rub or what? And
Well, I actually hydrate a lot. That's very, very important to keep everything lubricated. And of course, I'm a hot tea and lemon and, and tea also. But hydration is so important. But over the years, the voice changes. It doesn't stay the same. So I adapt to what God has changed in my life, vocally. So you learn to use what you have. But I rehearse. I try to sing every day.
Really?
Oh yeah. I always, because when you don't sing, you kind of lose it. So every day sing something. If it's 15 minutes, I sing every day. And hopefully what I hear comes out the way I want it to come out. But but hydration is so, so important.
This is the second time in the last week that I've heard that, and I don't do
really?
it. Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to talk to a gentleman who has one of those voices Tuesday or Wednesday. And I've always wondered about that. We who have, I'll just say unique voices. I'll say it that way. I always wonder how do you do it? When I was a kid growing up, and I will not tell you about the summer between my 6th and 7th grade year, but it was absolutely horrible. I wouldn't talk because my voice was changing from.
Oh, you were going to change. Okay.
Yes, I sang in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Evelyn, telling the truth. I sang second soprano.
What?
Yes. And then I stood in front of the choir teacher in 7th grade, and she just looked at me and says, "So you had a rough summer, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, thanks
she knew the change was coming.
Oh, yeah. So, and it's funny, those of us who have this, the conversations are different.
Yeah.
But when somebody hears you, whether it's speaking or singing or whatever, it's always, you've got a beautiful voice. You think that. Because the one thing I learned as a broadcasting instructor was what you hear is what is coming out of my mouth. What I hear is inside my head.
There you go.
And so the first time I heard my voice on tape, did you go through this? The first time you hear your voice on tape, you're like, that's not me.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't sound anything like that.
Yes. And then I still feel that way sometimes,
And that's something that we as individuals have to overcome.
Yeah, we do.
And it takes a while because we still can't get used to what's in my head as opposed to what's coming out of my mouth.
Exactly.
Okay. And I don't feel so bad.
Don't feel bad. No.
So what's the experience when you're on stage with the CJO? You're singing, you turn around and look at them.
Yes.
Is there a little more pressure at that point because you're thinking, okay, we should be sounding like this and we're a little off?
Oh yeah.
Well, how do you correct that, or do you just give them the side-eyed look like, hey?
No, if I'm messing up, they're giving me the side-eyed look. But it's really the collaboration, because you have to the arrangements.
Right.
When you're working with a quartet or something, you have a little more leeway. You can kind of stretch out, go there, or do different things, and you have a little more room to do things. But with the arrangements, you got to kind of stay with what's happening. There's no diversions. You know what I mean? So, but I've had that a few times. But overall, it's been such a beautiful journey. Just I remember us doing a collaboration with the Akron Symphony. Mm-hmm. It was jazz meets symphony. And that was like, we had like 60 pieces behind us. And it was just that was just a highlight for me, you know, but it's just a beautiful experience, you know, and once you get those pieces together and you're singing from the heart, everything should be heartfelt. As Quincy Jones always says, leave a little room for God to come in. Let him come in there, and hey, and that's what you need. Not just what's happening on that paper, what you're playing. Let the heart come in.
So how often do you stick to the script, we'll say, or do a little improvisation?
Well, I try mostly every time because I don't always sing it the same way. You know, there's always some different inflections that may come in because that's the joy of jazz, you know. But pretty much that, yeah.
If you weren't singing jazz, what would you sing?
Wow. Well, I've always had a love for R&B. You know, I like that. You know, and I love some country music. I'm just, you know, that's a guilty pleasure, you know. But it's all infused together. You know, it's nothing really that's separate. You know, because jazz is blues is country. You know, it's just a lot of the genres together that, and just remember those. Yeah.
If I had to ask you, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
No, it's easy. You won't have an answer, but I'll be interested to hear your choices. If somebody came to you and said, Evelyn, I want you to go on stage, but I want you to sing 3 of your favorite tunes.
Whoa.
What would it be?
Jeez, that's, you know, I've been asked that question before, Darrell. That's a tough one. Wow. There's always a piece I've always done years ago. It was a piece by Olita Adams. Get Here.
Yes.
You
know well.
A real way. That one.
Yes.
That I did it. That's always been one of my favorites. Piece, the ballad by Johnny Hartman, My One and Only Love. Love that. And a third one. Wow. I'm on the spot now. Let me think. I don't know. So many. I have to get back with you on that third one.
Okay, not a problem. I just don't. I find it amazing. This is me. I consider musicians, vocalists, players, whatever, geniuses, because one, you can rehearse the whole song.
Yeah.
But within that rehearsal, within that performance of the song, something comes to you and touches you, and you put your own personality into it.
Yeah.
And it's not rehearsed, it just happens in that moment.
That's right.
So it is every now and then I want to don't take this the wrong way. I want to cut the top of your head open and just watch your brain.
I would like to look at there myself.
But to see when this change happens,
yes.
What is firing? What is doing this? How are you doing this?
You know,
what are you thinking?
And I have some of those moments, Darrell, and I tell you, I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's from a higher power. And sometimes I know I said, no, I wasn't supposed to do that, but it just came out, and I thought it, but I know it's more to it. So I have those moments.
So there are occasions when you perform and you get done and you go, how did I do that?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had a few of those moments. Absolutely. I do. I said, where did that note come from? How did that happen? You know, but I try to, like I say, sometimes I get carried away with the feeling of what I'm singing, and you can kind of lose technicalities, but that's where I try to stay. I try to stay heartfelt in the moment, and try to express what I'm singing, you know. Yes.
Wow. I just think that sometimes I've heard a lot of singers, a lot of different kind of singers. I'm amazed. I watched a video early today of Al Jarreau doing, no, I'm not going to think of the song. But he scats in the beginning.
Yes.
Where'd that come from? Where'd that come from?
That's right.
You know,
where'd it come from? Absolutely.
Or you watch things. I watched George Benson go from a guitar solo into him doing some vocal stuff. And when does he know the change happened? He just did it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I just find what you guys do amazing. And maybe in its simplest form, it's easy to you because you've rehearsed it, you've done it for years, blah, blah, blah. But for people like me who are sitting in the audience watching you, who see you maybe once a year over the course of 3 years, how do you do this? Where does it come from? How'd you get there?
Yeah, that's what, and hopefully that's what we convey to the audience. We want them to hear something, hear a feeling, hear a joy or sadness, or it was ironically I was just over. Sometimes I sing at Fatima. I sing for the seniors because a lot of times they don't get a chance to go out and hear music. And I had a lady come up to me at the end of the set. She was in a walker, and she walked up to me. She said, "I'm so happy. I'm getting teary-eyed." And she started crying. She said, and her daughter was there. She said, "My mom has dementia." And she said, "I hadn't seen her like that in a while." So she said, "You just made me so happy." And I just hugged her, and there, I'm getting a little emotional. But anyway, that's what music does.
I appreciate the emotion, because that's when I think you all are at your best, because you have to control the emotion.
Absolutely.
You can become emotional,
yes,
but you've got to maintain it. You can go here,
exactly,
and you can't go too far. But it is wonderful. And I've seen, well, we're born in the church, and sometimes you just go, okay, here comes the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, here it comes.
And let me just get out the way.
Absolutely.
That's an all fair story.
Absolutely. And that's why you do what you do. Hopefully. Right. And sustain out here. You know, that's the joy of it.
Evelyn, every time I see you sing, and I'll see you at that Hoagie Carmichael thing.
Oh, wonderful.
You provide joy.
And
I think that's the best way to say it. You just provide joy. And when you throw in that orchestra and everything, and how everything
so wonderful. I just want to thank them. Yes, I just want to thank CJO for supporting me over the years, and they've always been so wonderful to me. I thank them so much.
Okay, all right. Well, we thank you for being a part of the official CJO podcast. This is Jazz in the Land. I am Darrell Scott. There will be more after this.
Sponsorships not only make our season possible, but provide much-needed funding for the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra to provide outreach in the community and perpetuate the love of jazz for generations to come. We are so grateful to our presenting media sponsor, IdeaStream, and Jazz NEO for helping our 40th anniversary season come to life. Contact booking at clevelandjazz.org for more information on sponsorship opportunities.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Jazz in the Land, the official CJO podcast. I am Darrell Scott. My guest today is Chris Hovan. Chris does a myriad of things, from playing in bands to taking pictures. Why do I have to talk about it? We'll let Chris talk about it. He can let us know everything that he is currently involved in. Chris, how are you doing, first of all?
Oh, great.
All right. Can you tell us what you got going on, what you do?
I am first and foremost a musician here in the Cleveland area. I am a jazz drummer, and so I have various bands of my own that I lead, as well as working with numerous other people here in Cleveland. And then in addition to that, I'm a percussionist. And so I work with a couple bands, China Grove, which is a Doobie Brothers tribute band. I play percussion with them, and also Funkology, which is a horn band that plays music from the 70s and 80s. And then as a writer and photographer, I have been working for several decades, working for All About Jazz and Downbeat magazine. And then in addition to that, as a writer, I have done about 60 different albums. I've written liner notes for a variety of labels, from Steeplechase to Smoke Sessions to Crisscross Jazz.
So you have no free time.
That's very true. I have a 6-year-old granddaughter
Oh,
who keeps me busy on top of all of that.
oh, I don't know how you do it, sir. That is an awful lot. Tell us about this photography thing, because I'm sure I have seen your work. I'm pretty sure years and years ago we met back in the day, especially around the time of the Northeast Ohio Jazz Society.
Yes.
What so what photogs would I have seen that you have done?
So I have, well, I personally, even before I got into photography, I attended the Detroit Jazz Festival for probably about 28 years.
Hmm.
And then I started documenting that festival. In addition to that, I have documented the Tri-State Jazz Fest for a long time,
Hmm.
at least 10, 15 years. Um, During the time that there was the International Association of Jazz Educators, IAJE, I documented many of their conventions, their January jazz conventions. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I have archives of negatives going back to the film days. I am a school teacher, is my day gig, and I'm planning on retiring in about 2 years. And one of my big things is I want to go back and I want to, digitally transfer a lot of the negative stuff that I have.
So it is quite possible that once you have retired and get all this stuff cataloged and digitized and so forth and so on, that you'll have a book out, correct?
That is on my bucket list. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Who do you think, and it's obviously this is your opinion, who do you think is the most influential person that you have photographed?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, gosh, there's just so many of
And I'm
them.
sure there's a ton, but if you could just name a few.
I mean, of the current guys that are out there. I mean, I've photographed Kamasi Washington. Um, I would say, Brian Blade. And of course, the drummer in me is going to come out in some of these
Hmm.
people. Like Bill Stewart is one of my favorite drummers of all time. Samara Joy, um, who's one of the great vocalists, who's up and rising.
Right.
John
Can't,
Schofield is one of my favorite people.
okay.
I've captured him on film many times.
Here, let me ask you this question, because I mean, I don't do what you do. I'm the person that they tap on the shoulder and say, "Stop filming." And all I want is just a picture to kind of chronicle that I've been at this event. What is the toughest thing? Because sometimes just using my phone or whatever, the angles are horrible. They don't stand in the same spot. The lighting's off. You're too far back. You're too close. What is the one thing, if you had to tell somebody who wants to do what you do, to look for as they snap a photo?
That's a great question. So, a lot of times when you have a media pass and you're in the pit, as they call it,
Hmm.
you get a specified amount of time. So, you get the first 2 tunes or the first 3 tunes.
Right. Yes.
And I approach when I'm taking pictures. I also am in the mindset of being a musician, as I am.
Hmm.
So it's about being in the moment. So for me, like every time I start doing that and I'm a photographer, I'm very anxious because it's about, I want to get in the zone.
Right.
I want to get the musicians when they're in the zone. And so it really is kind of like it's almost like a battle to make sure that, in that limited time that you have, that you are able to capture the moments where the musicians are really like in that zone. And a lot of times, like in the first tune, that's not happening.
Right.
So, I kind of wait, I'll take some stuff in the first tune, but then I'm waiting towards, the second or the third tune where I'm really hoping to, capture something where they're starting to really kind of lose themselves in the music.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge.
I'm sure it is. And I would think you have to have a great degree of patience.
Absolutely.
Because as we would all like for them to play one tune and it'd be 6 or 7 minutes long, that gives you a better duration of time to get your picture. But sometimes there's 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes if they're a soloist, their solo might not be in the first 2 songs. I can't imagine all the trials and tribulations that you go through to get one picture. But I'm sure that if we look through your catalog of pictures, we would see some classic things and some classic shots. But it has got to be a time-consuming, be patient kind of thing. The other thing is this: are there ever artists who have seen your work and call you to photograph them, or they've seen one of your pictures and call you and go, "Hey, can you send me one of those because I might use it in my catalog of pictures"?
Oh, absolutely. There's been many special relationships that I've had that have developed through that. One of my all-time favorite drummers, the late great Ralph Peterson. We became very good friends, and he passed way too young. But a couple years before he passed, I caught him at the Blue Llama in Ann Arbor, and got to hang with him a little bit afterwards, and told him I would be posting pictures, and then he contacted me and was like, I would love to use this for a promotional poster for this and that, and I was like, absolutely. So yes, there's been some really special instances of musicians reaching out and wanting to use things.
You've got to have some great relationships with all of these musicians, but you also probably have to have some, what do I want to say, uncomfortable situations. Do you have any of those?
I have some. I do. I have some really great relationships with a lot of different musicians. And one of the things that I really love to do, like when they come through town to the Bop Stop or to Blue Jazz and things like that, I like to be able to shoot things. I have to say I'm really fortunate that, in terms of the photography realm, I haven't really had anything that's been uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
As a journalist and in my writing, I've had a few tough interviewees here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been, it's been a small factor compared to the amount of work that I've done, but there's been a couple.
I would also think, how big is your territory? Because you got to be putting miles in your car if you're going from here to Ann Arbor to
I am.
Columbus.
I am. Yeah. So I, as a musician, I play in Detroit. I play in Pittsburgh. I haven't done as much in Columbus. But and then as a writer and a photographer, yeah, I definitely, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Yeah, I've definitely covered some different ground.
Now, can you get called to take pictures and to write? Can you do both at the same time?
I definitely have. And a lot of times when it's a concert situation, I actually do both. So I have a little notebook that I usually always have a shirt that has a pocket, and I put my little notebook in there.
It's the little things that make it different.
And then I shoot, and then then I take a break, and then as things come to my mind, I'll jot down notes and so forth.
How has technology blessed you with your ability to cover something from both a writing standpoint and a photographer standpoint? Because I can't imagine back in the day if you've got, I don't want to date myself, a long lens camera and you still got to take notes. So you got to have a pocket, more than one pen full of ink. But if you get in a groove of taking snapshots, but you also got to take notes. It's almost like you wish you had a little microphone that you could attach to your lapel and kind of dictate these notes while you're shooting. It would save you a little bit of time. I my brain can't fathom how you can do two things at once, but I'm willing to bet that you have mastered that.
Well, so probably one of the earliest experiences that I remember starting to document camera wise was at the Detroit Jazz Festival. I don't remember the year, but it was a while back. So it was Elvin Jones Jazz Machine.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a little Olympus point and shoot camera. And, so and here's, the thing with film is you don't know what you're getting until
Right.
you take it and process it.
Right. Yes.
So that's been like one of the biggest things being, making that shift to digital is, like if I do a jazz festival, it's easy that I end up coming back, at the end of a jazz festival with 3,000 shots.
Oh my God.
And that's, and in a way that's a whole process in itself because it's, uploading that and then going through all of those,
Right.
deleting and, define the dream shots out of all of that. But at least you have the footage to be able to do that as opposed to the film days. I mean, when I was starting out, there were many times where, you thought you had some stuff and then the film would come back and you get the pictures and it was like, boy, I don't even have one shot that's good.
Yeah. And then back then you also had to ship the film out and wait for it to come back.
Right.
I'm hoping now that if you're digital and it's on a memory card, you can at least see it right then and there. So you see it once you get home or something like that.
Right.
This
Exactly.
is, I think you should do 2 books. Just me. You ain't gonna listen to me. But if you do one book of just the shots you get from the different artists and so forth and so on, but then a book of this is where I started, this is how I started, this is what we did. Here's an example of a picture and how long it took to get from shooting to sending it out to getting the picture back to now doing the digital stuff. I am willing to bet. Don't get me wrong. When it comes to being a photographer, it's not on my bucket list. But I can't imagine all of the work that you have to do. And then you throw in the fact that you're a teacher. So I'm willing to bet that summers are great because you can concentrate on one thing. But then you're traveling all across the country, and then you still got to get this stuff developed. How does one deal with all of that?
It's challenging. So a lot of times in the summer, I do spend a lot of different days where I am archiving things. So I'm like making folders and I'm putting things in there and I'm deleting stuff that I know are shots that are blurry or whatever that I don't want anymore. And the other piece that you just mentioned that goes into a lot of this is, once you download the pictures and you're opening them up, and you pull up a shot where you go, yeah, I really like the expression. I like all of that. Then there's the whole, Photoshop stuff that I have to do because, you have purple lighting and the person looks purple. And so now I have to change the colors to make it be like more natural. So there's a lot of Photoshop editing that goes into that final product, just beyond just, past the time that I spent taking the pictures.
And this is just the picture portion of what you do. How many, and I do it by words, how many words are you writing for a story that you're putting in Downbeat or wherever?
So, I mean, typically if I'm doing like a concert review, like one concert review, I mean, it's at least 500 words.
Jeez.
If I'm doing a festival review like Tri-C Jazz Fest, it's easily 1,200 and up.
So in essence, you got like 4 full-time jobs that work, that don't work independent of each other. They work independent of each other. So it's like you go there, you take your pictures, blah, blah, blah. You get home, you got to write up the story. You got to edit the pictures. Oh, goodness gracious. Lots of patience, young man. Lots of patience. Lots of patience. Um, so you're going to retire in a couple of years. What is your ultimate goal? Once you retire and once you kind of archive all of this stuff, what are you going to do?
Well, so I have a couple friends that that have their own publishing business. So as you mentioned, I really do want to do like a book of some kind with my photographs. But then the other piece is that I really want to focus way more attention on booking shows for my music and so forth. I have several different groups that I try to kind of, it's almost like, that old saying about, like throwing the balls up in the air and trying to keep them up in there and balancing them. So that's kind of how I feel with the different groups that I have. I have a quartet with guitar, bass, and trumpet. And then really I feel like my muse is my organ trio stuff. Like Hammond B3 is my thing. So I have a couple different groups that, I have organ and guitar and myself. So I just want to play, as much as I can, once I retire, and book as much of that as I possibly can.
So are you a fan of Jimmy Smith?
I am a fan of Jimmy Smith. Excellent. I'm a fan of so many, like Dr. Lonnie Smith. I got to meet him several times. One of my favorite organists. Groove Holmes, Jack McDuff, Jimmy McGriff, Larry Young. Just that's one of my favorite things.
And it's funny, you don't hear a lot about those guys, and I realize that a couple of them are deceased, but their music was so good. I somewhere in a cabinet across the way, I still have Jimmy Smith's The Sermon. And it's one of those things where you go, you tell people that's one of your favorite songs, and they're like, you realize that song's like 100 years old. And the problem with that is what? I still like it.
You're right.
It's just what you like, and there's so much music to like. What's it like? Another oddball thing. What's it like to sit up there and be on stage and play all of this stuff? Do sometimes you wish you could go outside of yourself and shoot yourself and then write an article on what you're doing? That I think that would be so cool.
I've never thought of that before, but there, I think the thing that is so great about being a musician and being on stage and being in that moment is the feeling of that interaction that you have with the people that are on stage with you. And when it comes to doing the stuff that I do with the organ trio, when you're sitting next to the Leslie speaker and you got all of that music coming out of there, it's just, you can't help but be inspired. It just makes you play better.
I ask this question of musicians all the time. While you're playing, do you ever lose yourself in the music and kind of have to catch yourself to go, oh wait, I'm playing with the trio, I'm playing with the quartet, I gotta let these guys eat, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always this balance between thinking and not thinking. I mean, there's the thinking part where you're making sure that you're where you need to be, but then losing yourself so that you can,
express
yourself and do things that are in the moment. Yeah.
Go ahead. What are the name of the groups? Or do you have a calendar that folks can follow to get out to see you?
So, I have a quartet, which I call the Generations Quartet. It features Mark Russo on trumpet, Tim Mirth on guitar, and in the past I've worked pretty regularly with a wonderful young gentleman named Taylor Arbogast on bass. He's become very, very busy, which I'm really happy for him. So I'm not sure, how
How
much
much longer?
he'll be holding down that spot.
Right.
The organ trio currently is with a fabulous gentleman out of Columbus, Ohio. His name's John Eshelman.
Mm-hmm.
He plays a lot. We just actually did a gig at the Bop Stop about a week and a half ago, where we did the Larry Young Unity album and some other Larry Young music with Mark Russo and Pete Mills, great saxophonist out of Columbus. But the organ trio is usually John and Tim Mirth, who is a wonderful guitarist here in the Cleveland area. But then I also have a couple guys from Michigan that I've established relationships with, that we work, here and there. Guy named Cliff Metcalf, who is just monster organ player. He's out of Holland, Michigan. And Larry Barris, who's out of Detroit. He's played with a bunch of Motown people and stuff. So I'm very fortunate, because a lot of the people that I work with and establish these relationships with are just wonderful people, and we have a synergy, and I get to kind of mix and match and put things together, and it's always so much fun.
So do you have a website or some kind of social media that folks can follow?
I do. So my website is www.cahovan.com.
Okay. All right. Because you have to find out where you're playing so we can come out and see you. The man who has 18 jobs and can do them all in one day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Chris Hovan. Chris, greatly appreciate the time. We will have to get out and see you. So if some strange guy walks up to you and says hello, it's probably me and my knucklehead self. And this has been fun.
Awesome.
I number one, I enjoy the organ. Like I said, Jimmy Smith, Jack Let My People Go is one of my favorite songs, and the stuff from the sermon on Jimmy Smith is just wonderful. Thank you for the time. We'll get back together again. We'll get out to see you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this portion of the CJO Podcast. Jazz in the Land. I'm Darrell Scott. There's more to come.
The Cleveland Jazz Orchestra has been Northeast Ohio's premier jazz voice since 1985. Led by award-winning composer and trombonist Paul Ferguson, the CJO promotes jazz in its historical and contemporary forms through concerts featuring a stellar lineup of jazz luminaries, arrangers, composers, and educators. At a CJO concert, you will enjoy the best jazz you've ever heard and the best jazz you've never heard. Through inventive, original music and effective, innovative educational outreach, the CJO shepherds young musicians and provides our region with unique and important cultural experiences.
Welcome to Jazz in the Land, the original, the official CJO podcast. I am Darrell Scott. I am your host. Today we're going to talk to a man who holds a lead chair. We're going to talk about his experience of getting to be in the band, to becoming a lead player in the band, and the experiences that go along with that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Brad Wagner. Brad, how are you today?
I'm all right. Glad to be here.
Talk about your experience in, first of all, getting into the CJO.
In 2004, I moved back to town. I grew up around here. I heard the CJO when I was in high school in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Cincinnati for college and finished school, hung out down there for a little bit. When I moved back to town, early 2005, I got a call to sub in the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra on the second tenor chair. And that led to subbing on second tenor a bunch, and then eventually I got asked to play second alto and then first tenor and a couple times on Barry sax. So for a number of years I was one of the main subs. So if there's 5 saxophones in the section, I was like number 6 or 7, give or take, on a number of years, until around the time my son was born, somewhere around 2012. I'm not good with these dates. I got a call asking if I would want to play second alto for the entire season. And of course I said, yes, sure, that'd be great. So I got to sit next to Howie Smith playing lead alto for up until 2019 when he retired. And At that time, I got a call from Paul Ferguson right after that happened, and he was like, well, but would like to have you on lead alto. And at the same time, John Clayman had retired from the first tenor chair.
Mm-hmm.
So you move over, but we have 2 spots to fill. And so a conversation was had, like, who in town, who should we think about? And of course, my first thoughts were Chris Coles and Chris Burge.
Mm-hmm.
So as glad as I was to play lead alto, which I can talk about that, it was really cool to have the opportunity that those guys wanted to play in the band with Johnny Cochran and George Shernett. Playing lead is fun. I really like playing lead. I like big band recordings. I like studying how lead players have played in the past and applying that with my own voice. But more important to me is how the whole section sounds together.
Right.
And having Chris Coles, Chris Burge, Johnny Cochran, George Shernett, and then a number of subs that sub in the band, people that care about how the section sounds, how all 5 sound together, is really important. And as a lead player, if you have 4 other musicians that can really support the sound of the section, blend together, play in tune together, match styles, that's a great feeling.
So let me ask you this. So you start out as a sub. The only subs I can kind of relate to would be substitute teachers. So you're not there every day. You're not playing every day, every weekend or whatever. How long does it take you once you make that move to the lead to kind of fill those responsibilities and make yourself an integral part of the other 5 horns? Because I can't, and you tell me, you can't just walk in, play, and everything be a cohesive unit. So there's rehearsals, obviously, but rehearsals are obviously different than playing in front of an audience. So tell me about that experience and getting to that point.
Well, to start off, I was 23 years old, still young. I had a lot of experience playing. I started playing gigs in big bands when I was in high school. Started playing in a band in Cuyahoga Falls when I was 14 called the Swing Machine.
Wow.
And I started on second alto, and then I started playing lead with a bunch of musicians that were 20 to 40 or more years older than me, and they taught me a lot. So coming back to town and playing with CJO after going through school, my sight reading was good, could play in tune, but getting into a section, like you said, that with players at the time that had played together for years, I really had to be on high alert. Okay, how are they playing? How long do they play the long notes? How short do they play the short notes? How soft do they get? How loud do they get? Where do I need to fit in? So as a young player still, that was it was something I cared about, something a lot of my teachers and mentors had instilled in me to care about. So I'm not going to say it was easy because of all those things, but I was pretty prepared, but I still had a lot to learn. So over the years, as I subbed, since I was in tune with what those guys were doing, I think I started getting called more and more because I was able to fit into those situations. But you really got to be on high alert. You have to pay attention to those things. Sometimes what makes a good saxophone section player, or any section player, trombones, trumpets, is the ability to show up to the rehearsal and the gig and quickly figure those things out and be able to blend in. And that's why maybe sometimes you might wonder, some of the best soloists in jazz, maybe not all of them played in big bands, or if they did, it was very little. Having the best soloist is not always what makes a big band of great soloists might not make the best orchestral sound, jazz orchestra sound, because there's those details you got to look at to fit in. That said, Cleveland does have a lot of wind players that can fit into those situations.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the horn players talk to each other about that kind of stuff. Let's play it this way, let's play it that way, or we like this and we don't like that. And as people play with each other in different bands, they kind of learn the language, the scene, the Cleveland sound. I mean, we've got a number of big bands in Cleveland, but there's a Cleveland sound. There's a Cleveland way of how to play a short note, a long note. So learning those, and it's important for younger players too to if they want to be part of the scene, to start showing up to concerts and listening. Oh, that's how they play that. So I should think about that when I'm practicing.
So were you scared or nervous as you matured into this group?
No.
No?
No. A lot of great players who, very nice people. The on-the-job experience where if someone would correct you or encourage you was always a good thing. I never felt, well, take that back. There's always moments of intimidation and,
right,
and that kind of stuff, but I was never scared about it myself. I was always like ready. Okay, let's do this. Let's put in the hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And just sitting next to like someone like Howie Smith was invaluable, because I really liked the way that he played lead alto. So just trying to figure out how to match him, even if I made a mistake, it's like, okay, let's just keep working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Music is always in progress.
Here's my thing, and I'm a big, for lack of a better term, woodwind fan, and I understand that there are 112 different types of saxophones, from tenor to alto to baritone, and the list goes on and on and on. Is one of them tougher than the other? Are the expectations different if it's tenor versus alto?
I think you'll get just as many opinions on that. I don't consider any of the saxophones tougher or easier. They all have their things that are easy or hard, or you have to pay a little more attention to. Sitting in a big band section, there are a lot of differences. Playing the different chairs, the lead alto part is usually the melody, the top note.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of times where then the whole saxophone section is in unison, so you have to match, or so the tenors have to match the altos match the tenors to try to make it sound, instead of like 4 or 5, try to make it sound like 1.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might be in octaves, where the altos are an octave above the tenors and bari. So matching those octaves is important. And as a tenor player and a bari player, when you're doing that, you have to think differently and listen up for that. Playing bari has its challenges because of all the saxophones, the bari sax part will move its role from the saxophone section to the trombone section to the rhythm section, often within one section of music. So playing bari sax has its own obstacles to come over, when for 3 measures you're with the saxophone section, and then 2 measures you're with the trombone section, and then you have a hit with the bass, upright bass, and then the very next measure you're back with the saxophone section.
How did you learn all of this?
I, for some reason, became really interested in this when I was young. When I was in high school, like I said, when I played in the swing machine in Cuyahoga Falls with a bunch of older professionals, they taught me a lot, and they just started telling me recordings to go listen to. And I would listen to these recordings over and over and over, and I'd start picking, well, what are those altos doing? What are those tenors doing? What is the bari doing? And then in college, in high school I did some composing, but I wasn't really into it. In college, I started getting more into composing and arranging, so I started paying attention even more to the recordings, getting copies of the musical score, and looking, oh, what's going on? What did they write? So that's always interested me. And then since then, I've written, arranged or composed music for big band. I think I'm in the 80 to 100 big band charts at this point.
Wow.
I don't have an actual count. I know at one point I counted that I was at 50. And Chaz Baker, CJO legend,
Mm-hmm.
I saw Chaz Baker and I said, Chaz, I just counted and I've done 50 big band charts now. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, so you're ready to write your first one. And
No pressure.
it took a second and I knew exactly what he meant. I was like, yes. It took about 50 of them to figure out. I think I'm starting to know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I did 50, but yeah, I'm kind of ready to write like my first one now. It's all that work. It's finally coming together in my head. But I mean, back to your point about knowing about the roles of the saxophones, it's just lots of listening, lots of studying, playing with different big bands, different situations, playing in a saxophone section behind singers, behind Aretha Franklin at Tri-C Jazz Fest some 15 years ago or so, playing in the saxophone sections behind the Temptations, doing saxophone sections behind singers with the Cleveland Orchestra, the Cleveland Pops. Just when I'm in those situations, I'm always listening for, what's going on, who's playing what are the important things, what's sticking out, what needs to blend in. Those have always been important to me.
So when you accomplished arranging your first song and you give it to the band to play, what happens? Are you more listening to see how the band is doing, or are you like a proud papa with a child and wanting the child to behave and be respectful and all that sort of stuff? Which feeling overcomes you?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Something I've learned over the years is that, like, once you write it's kind of no longer yours.
Mm-hmm.
You write the music, you give it to a band, and you let them play it and kind of discover it. And maybe they'll make it sound a way that you didn't intend.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the way, because then the music you wrote then actually sounds like the musicians that are playing it. And that's kind of important at this point, like when I'm composing. Instead of thinking, I want this to sound exactly how I wrote it. It's like,
right.
Well, I want it to mostly sound the way I wrote it, but if the musicians take this somewhere, play a phrase a certain way, style it a different way, like, oh, that, you know what, I have to be okay with that. And I am okay with that, because then it can turn into something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the emotion and beauty and ugliness can come out, which is great.
Sometimes even ugly can be beneficial.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So if I had to ask you right now, where do you want to take all of this? What is your ultimate goal? I'm going to guess you don't want to play the rest of your life in the orchestra. That's just a guess on my part. But if you said when you are 50, 55, 60, where do you want to be? You want to have your own albums out? I can't help but call them albums now. CDs, your own projects out. Do you want to be the leader of the orchestra? What do you want to do?
I definitely want to release albums of the music that I've composed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually in the planning stages of at least one, maybe two, maybe three, of my compositions. I want to record a big band album of the original music I've written for big band, which is a little more adventurous. I've also written a lot of swing style big band charts, and that could be a cool album to do. And I've also written for a lot of vocalists, especially Evelyn Wright, who sings with the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra. I've written charts for her. I've written charts for Aaron Kecken. I've written charts for Vanessa Rubin. I've written charts for Mike Cady, and I think it would, all good Cleveland singers, I think it would be really cool to do an album of my vocal big band charts featuring those 4 Cleveland jazz singers. Sure.
So we got a plethora of talent here that people may not know about. We got to get you guys. It's horrible. More work. I know you don't want more work, but we want to get you some more work.
Oh, we want work.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have to work on that. That'll be my other side job. What is the most different thing from being, I don't know, horn player number 4 versus being in the lead chair? What is the toughest thing to handle?
The personality of the jazz orchestra in terms of sound comes from the lead players.
Mm-hmm.
The lead alto, the lead trombone, the lead trumpet player, the sound of the big band's personality, the style of the melodic phrases starts with those lead players. So there's a lot to have to control with that. As a lead alto player, your personality coming through on that part leads the section, it can lead the whole band. A different lead alto player could make the entire jazz band sound.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But if it weren't for the rest of the section, the saxophone section, if it was only the lead player, it wouldn't sound nearly as full and vibrant and beautiful as it does with all 5 voices.
Mm-hmm.
So it is. I like lead alto. I like playing it. I've studied it, but without 4 other players there to be trying to line up our vibrations together, it doesn't mean much more than a solo.
Mm-hmm.
And there's time for solo. I love soloing also. And I love hearing the guy sitting next to me solo. But you just can't beat what some people say, 50 flying fingers of 5 saxophonists making all that sound together. That's the coolest thing about playing in a jazz ensemble for me.
It's funny you say that. So I now picture a new album, a new group, and it's called the 50 Flying Fingers.
Right.
I think that's a great title, a great album title, great name for a group.
And I've written charts for a saxophone section plus rhythm section, Black Dog Octet here in town, and it's 5 saxes with rhythm section, and we've thrown that around a little bit about 50 flying fingers.
Whatever I can do, let me know. Thank you for being a part of Jazz in the Land, the official CJO podcast. This has been great. It's great to get to know you. I will see you at some performance. When some guy walks up to you and extends his hand, it'll be me, and I'm sure you won't treat me. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm sure you'll treat me just fine. You won't treat me like other artists that I've met before.
Oh no, of course.
Brad, I look forward. I look forward to seeing you, and I'm sure I've seen you play. It's just that we've never had the opportunity to meet it and kind of talk off microphone, so to speak. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jazz in the Land, the official CJO podcast. We'll be back with more.
This has been Jazz in the Land, the CJO podcast on behalf of the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra. Thanks so much to our board and staff and audience and supporters, and especially to the crew that makes this podcast possible, including host Darrell Scott, producers Scott Marsh and George Carr, and associate producer Ricky Exton. Thanks again for your time, and we look forward to sharing jazz with you in the future.